The interview subject today is lacrosse with the New Westminster Adnex team. The interviewee is Mr. Robert Bob Phelan, and it is being recorded at 141 East Durham Street, New Westminster, B.C. The date is November the 24th, 1999, and the time 2 p.m. The interviewee is Dick Ramsey. The game of lacrosse is one of New Westminster's traditions. It dates back to 1890 with the founding of the New Westminster Salmon Bellies team. One of this team's strongest competitors was the New Westminster Adnex, the team with which Bob Phelan played in the 1930s and beyond. Bob was acclaimed for having both defensive and offensive skills and for contributing effective leadership. These attributes, among others, contributed significantly to the numerous successful occasions for the team and eventually to Bob's induction into the Canadian Lacrosse Hall of Fame.
Well, thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to interview you, Bob. And I'd like to start off by just saying that I understand that the game of lacrosse was originally a field game, but it was agreed to move it indoors in 1932, and the first indoor game was played that same year. What were the reasons for this change?
Well, I think weather and the conditions for field lacrosse. Field lacrosse was always played on Saturday afternoon and the weekends. Box lacrosse, the idea was, I think you could play it in the evenings, indoors, under lights, and not worry about the weather. Mm-hmm. And it worked very well. Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Are there any major differences in the two forms of play? For example, rules, number of people on the teams?
Well, the field lacrosse, as I remember, had I think it was 10 players, 3 defense, three forwards, the goalie, rover, etc. Box lacrosse, when it first started, was condensed because of space down to 7, which included 2 defensemen, a goalie, 2 defensemen, 2 forwards, a rover, and a center. Mm. So there was a difference.
Mm-hmm. What about the length of periods? Were they the same?
I think they were basically the same. Lacrosse was always, in my mind, 4 periods, 4 15-minute periods.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And what about the playing space dimensions? Were they the same, or they changed?
They were very, very different because you played on a field that was, I would say, probably 300 feet long, whereas lacrosse would probably be under 200. The width of the field would be a lot different. Lacrosse, it seemed, as I remember, you ran forever because the field was so wide and the field was so long. Mm-hmm. Whereas in a box lacrosse, mm-hmm. you took the arena as it came, mm-hmm. and that's what established the size of the mm-hmm. playing field. Mm-hmm. And sometimes when they wanted to put more seats in, they narrowed the width of the playing surface. I remember that.
Yeah. Yeah. And I guess indoors too would be a faster game, wouldn't it? Rebounds.
It was much faster because you were in field lacrosse. You didn't have the wooden walls at either end, yeah. and you didn't have we had a wooden floor in New Westminster. Mm-hmm. You had a lot of rebounds, and you didn't have as far to go, mm-hmm. so you could get from a defensive mode to an attacking mode quite easily.
Yeah, yeah. That's therefore there'd be more goals.
Oh, more goals, more excitement,
yeah. And more penalties too.
More penalties, and because you're in a confined area, yeah. There was a lot more excitement, mm-hmm. And the crowd was right at the side of the field.
I guess with that increased speed, then the substitutes or substitutions would be more readily achieved, or such in hockey, they talk about line changes and so on. So there'd be, did that occur too?
Well, I think that was one change that I think came about because I don't recall any field lacrosse that I saw where an entire line changed. I think, and I would be sure that
just like in soccer, it would
in the soccer, the old salmon bellies, the stars, the best players would seem to. I think they'd play the whole game.
Sure.
Whereas in box lacrosse, it was so fast, and you didn't have as many men to worry about, but you could change an offensive line on the run, on the fly.
That's interesting, you know. It really is. Well, so I imagine as a youngster, you played a lot of field lacrosse.
That's what got me interested in the first place, and I can remember watching the 1928 Salmon Valleys who went to the Olympics. I can remember them working out in Queen's Park.
Oh yes,
yeah.
Isn't that amazing?
Yeah, I lived handy to there, so
sure.
It was for me.
Sure. Yeah, and where in your particular case, Bob, where did you play field lacrosse?
We played originally at Queen's Park, not in the big oval, but wherever we could. We played a lot in Moody Park, in the west end of New Westminster. But in those days for field lacrosse, you put up 2 goals, and that was it. The field was the field.
That was it.
Yeah. And so those 2 areas, and then when we did form a team, we might go into Burnaby. That's about as far as we went.
Yes, sure. So were there school leagues of lacrosse? No. And community leagues? There were community.
Not in field lacrosse.
Not in field lacrosse.
But there were maybe intermediate teams. Before, as a build-up to the Salmon Bellies, the different areas in New Westminster, and this was way before my time, but they did have intermediate teams in the West End and in Safford and the center of town. So it wasn't just the Salmon Bellies. They did have players learning the game at a lower level.
How and when did you first become attracted to the game? What, just watching people play, you think, I'd like to do this someday, or what?
Well, the street that I lived on, one of my neighbors was Willis Patchell, who is a member of the Canadian Lacrosse Hall of Fame, who played professional lacrosse prior to the war, went overseas, came back and played again, and went to the Olympics in 1928. He was my neighbor, and that did get me interested. And my first lacrosse stick came from that Salmon Belly team.
Is that?
Yeah, it was broken, mind you, but I got it fixed.
I was going to ask you about that. I understand that there's an interesting story about the way in which you received your first lacrosse stick.
Well, the first lacrosse stick was used by the spare goalie, but they broke the main frame down the side, and it wasn't much good as a lacrosse stick, so he threw it away. But I had a neighbor who was mechanically inclined, and he put a band of steel inside and outside with 2 big bolts. But it was never an official lacrosse stick after that, but it did help me to learn how to catch and throw a ball. But it was pretty vicious.
You mentioned a name just a moment ago, and I'd like to get the correct spelling, because I'm going to do about a summary of this, and I just want to make sure we got the Willis.
Willis.
Yeah.
Patchell.
Patchell. Okay, good. Now, talking about names, what can you tell me about a chap named Vic Stropel?
I would say that Vic Stropel, and I don't know his background, I don't know much history about him, I know he lived in New Westminster, but I know that he is the fellow that got me interested in the team idea of lacrosse. And not just myself, but a lot of the fellows that I ended up playing with through the years got their first induction to lacrosse through Vic. And he's the kind of a guy that if you had to go to Burnaby South to play a game, somehow or other he would get you there. He didn't have any money, but he had enthusiasm. And he was a fellow that probably will never receive any recognition for it. No. But he contributed greatly to us young fellows playing lacrosse.
It just goes to prove that in every movement, whether it be in sports or some other endeavor, there are always unsung heroes.
Absolutely, yeah.
Now, as a boy, were you one of those boys who always carried a lacrosse stick with him?
Well, I'll tell you, before I say that, when the Salmon Bellies used to play on Saturday afternoon, and I lived on 5th Street and 4th Avenue in New Westminster, one of the home players for the Salmon Bellies was Sonny Douglas was his name. He used to walk along 4th Avenue to the game carrying his lacrosse stick in his bag. I used to meet him there on the day of the game and carry his bag. I just thought that was wonderful. I'd carry his bag from there to the field every Saturday. And that probably got me going because once I got interested in lacrosse, and this continued, that my lacrosse stick stayed with me day and night. I took it to school.
Sure.
If we went on a trip, I slept with it. It was that important to me.
Of course.
It was that important.
Of course.
Yeah, so we used to always have a stick with it. There would always be 3 or 4 of us heading for a park to throw it around.
That just shows how closely you were identified with the game and the ambition and delight to.
Well, I just loved the game.
And that's interesting too. And I imagine that having the opportunity to carry the chap's stick with the bag with him, that really.
Well, I just admired that guy, and he let me carry it. And of course, I think that probably got me into the game.
I can understand just how you felt about that because I can remember in a little baseball league, the Fraser Mills and Fraser Cafe, Iogo and I used to pick up a few dimes and nickels here and there, volunteering, and they would flip me some money as bat ball. That's it. So Tony Bullough from Millardville, he would hit home runs every time he wanted to. I said, "Which bat do you want, Tony?" And just to hold the bat and give it to him.
Wasn't that interesting?
Oh yeah, but hold the bat, you know. I could identify the feeling.
Oh sure. Bellingham had a team come up, and I was their bat boy.
Is that right?
Yeah. That's right.
That's it. Well, could you tell me something about your team playing experiences that is immediately before joining the Westminster Adnex?
Well, the 1933 Man Cup was played in New Westminster between the Salmon Bellies and the Hamilton Tiger Cats. And I think I was 14 at the time. And they came out we were trying to get in the arena. We didn't have any money, but a fellow came out and says, "Would one of you fellows like to usher?" And I said, yes, I could do it. So I went in and ushered, and that was, to me, one of the most famous series there ever was. That was in 33. At that time, there weren't many leagues in town, but this 1933 series was all it needed to get lacrosse booming.
I see.
And in 1934, they formed a local junior league. New Westminster with 4 teams in there, West End, East End, Saffordton, and Burnaby. And it was wide open for anybody. I had played a little bit before that, but this was the most organized we had been, you see. And I had played field lacrosse before, but it wasn't that important. I played the odd box lacrosse game, probably that year when I was 13 or 14. But this junior league got started, and there were no boxes to play in. We practiced in the tennis courts at Moody Park. But with our West End team specifically, we just attracted, I was 15 at the time in the league. You could be up to 21 in the league, you see. But all my buddies were about 15 at the time, the fellows that went to the Edna.
Yeah.
So that was our first real organized lacrosse team. And you knew that you were going to play this team on this night and so forth. That was the first real organized lacrosse that we had when we were 50. And that would be 1934. Well, between 31 and 34, we played those field lacrosse games. We played pickup sides. We did what we wanted, but there was nothing really organized.
No, I understand.
But that junior league, it started it, and with the junior league, then they had a juvenile league and a midget league, and so kids were starting the way they do now. And
so with the development then of the creation of the Adnax team, would that come around that time, and they were looking for people to?
Well, the Adnac, the senior Adnac team was organized. I think it was 1930, right about this time, 32, 33. Yeah, they applied for admission to the Intercity Lacrosse League and were granted permission to play. They didn't, so they formed their team. And what their team was originally was ex-Salmon Valleys, or fellows who weren't good enough for the Salmon Valleys, or fellows who wanted to play lacrosse, and they would almost let anybody play that could carry a stick. And so, but then I think they probably had in mind, well, this junior league is going to provide some players for us, you see, which it did. And we, for some reason or other, our West End, or 4 or 5 of us, we just naturally tried out for the Adnac. And fellow from the East End, fellow from Burnaby, that was the place that we had a chance of playing, because the Salmon Valleys were importing players from the East. The Adnacs didn't have enough money to import somebody from Safford. So you knew that if you played for the Adnacs, that you got the same as a star. And you got a chance.
Oh boy.
You see, so what the thing was wide open to make the team, and it was up to you and your ability. So I think it was 4 of us went from the West End to the Adnacs, and we made it, and then learned from there. You see, but we weren't promised anything. There was no recruiting. The guys, the stars might have come to a game and spoken to us, but not say, come to our team and play for us.
No.
It was just up to us.
But you had to prove yourself. Sort of an audition, so to speak.
Well, that's right, and it was just up to us.
But that's how they recruited you.
That's right. And you knew that you had a chance to make the team.
Well, tell me, you're on the team. How did you feel playing your first game in the New Westminster Arena in front of an audience or spectators who paid to see you play? Is that bring any water to your knees at first?
I'll tell you, I felt very nervous. And the first game that I played was against the North Shore Indians when they had a real good team, and they were all native Indians. And I can remember Ray Baker, who was a star in those days, and he was an older man. I was 17, I guess, or 18, and we scored a goal, I think, and he said to me, "You called me a son of a babe," and I hadn't, but I didn't know. I wasn't. I didn't know whether to call for my brothers or go home or what to do. But that was the very first game I played, and that was my introduction to the Indians. And another night, probably my second game, was against the salmon bellies, and and two of these old-time salmon bellies hit me at the same time, and I thought I was dead.
Well, you know, that kind of an introduction, you were set for the rest of your life as a player.
That's right.
Yeah,
But I'll tell you, the thing that we always had with the Adnex, that if you can't handle it, we will.
Yes.
You see, there's always somebody.
Another cooperative
You betcha.
backing up the other guy all the time.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
What playing position did you have? Were you? I think you mentioned you played defense and you also played forward, or whatever the case might be.
Well, they're lining up as we mentioned earlier. At that time there were two defensemen, two forwards, a rover, and the center. I lined up as a forward most of the time. Jimmy Douglas was the other forward, and I lined up with him. And that's as far as it went, because our two defensemen at the time, Teddy Bradbury and Bob Lee, they could go. They wanted to play offense as well as they wanted to play defense. And our coach, his theory was that if you've got the ball, you're an offensive player. But we want the ball back, so you're all defensive players. So I lined up as a forward, but I was called a defensive player.
I see.
You see. But I always got my share of goals. And in fact, the whole six on our string did. And you know, our centerman, somebody's got to get you the ball, and Harry Kennedy would get the ball from the faceoff, and if a defenseman got it and scored, so what? It didn't matter. But we passed the ball around a lot, and we didn't know whether we were passing it to a defenseman or a forward.
No.
It didn't matter.
You mentioned the name Harry Kennedy. Would that be Punk Kennedy?
Punk Kennedy.
Why did they call him Punk?
Probably because of his size.
Yeah.
He wasn't very big.
Wasn't big, but he was strong.
Oh, he was good. Good player. Good player.
Were you roughed up quite a few times on the floor? Or did you?
Me?
Yeah.
I got my bangs.
You had?
Yeah. We had a good doctor for sewing us up. Dr. Robertson was.
For sewing you up? Yeah. That's good. Did you rough up other people?
Well, no, I don't think I ever cut a person with a stick. Yeah. But I threw a lot of body checks and cross checks. Yeah.
How many goals did you score in your career?
Oh, it's in the Hall of Fame thing.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay.
I was, as a matter of fact, it was just about even assists and goals. I loved setting up plays. But as I say, because we passed the ball so much, I'm talking about our particular string. We were two different strings on our lacrosse team. But we passed the ball so much that you might pass it and get an assist, but if someone passes to you and you got a good shot and you're going to shoot, you're going to get a goal. And mine worked out just about 50-50.
50-50.
In fact, I led the league 1 year in assists.
Oh yes, well that's sure. You led the league 1 year in assists. Yeah. How many games would you play, say, during the month? Would it be a game a week or 2 games a week?
Well, when we when in our heyday, the Salmon Bellies had say Monday night as their home game, and ours was Thursday.
Oh yes.
And the schedule was about 24 games in those times.
Yes. And did you? How many games would you say? Now, this might not be a fair question, but reflecting, if you look back on your career, somebody said, "I understand you're a lacrosse player, or you were a lacrosse player. How many games did you play in your life?" You know. Would you be able to give a person a pretty good guess?
In my case, I would, sure, I'd say about 200. 200
games?
Yeah.
That's a lot of running up and down.
Well, but, when you're young, when we were playing junior. I can remember playing a junior game and an intermediate game in the same night.
Same night, yeah.
Same night.
Yeah.
I think nothing of it.
No.
And in those days,
Yeah.
most of us worked physically.
Sure. During the day.
During the day,
Yes.
we put in our 8 hours
Yeah.
and come home and have something to eat and go up and run up there.
Yeah.
Then go out after that.
Yeah. Well, I know the Tony Bull used to tell me, because I fooled around with the Bull family.
My brother played with that team.
Is that right?
Yeah.
He did?
Yeah.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
He'd say, one time, they were expecting him to hit a home run over the left field fence. He said, I got a sore shoulder, I couldn't do it. I said, what? Oh, you have a sore shoulder? What happened? Did you hit? No, I've been pulling out the green chain all day.
Yeah.
But he's still hitting home runs.
Well, that's right. Yeah, they all worked out there. Yeah.
Gee. Well, I'm interested too in the awards you won, and you just showed me one a moment ago. I guess that'd be referred to as the most valuable player.
Well, it was. That was in '41. They had a trophy in the league, the main league, and it was the Maitland Trophy, and that was, at that time, it was a pretty important trophy. It probably still is. I was the runner-up for that in 1938, 1939, but my good friend Jim Douglas, who I played with all the years, he was the number one. I was the number two.
Oh, yeah.
So that was pretty important at that time.
You won the special trophy for the Air Force team during the war too.
Well, yeah, and that was during the war, and I was quite pleased with that. You always are when you get something like that, because it does mean you're appreciated.
Oh, sure, absolutely.
And I was the captain of that team.
I was going to ask you that. You were, and were you ever? That was with the Air Force team.
Yeah.
Yes. And did you captain any of the Adnax teams?
Not the Adnax team. We were the younger players, and we didn't play that long. But I did captain an Air Force team that played against the Salmon Bellies during the war. I guess apart from a junior team, the best team that I ever captained was a senior men's basketball team at that day, which we won the Canadian Championship.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Isn't that interesting?
And, I was pretty pleased with that.
Yeah, I would imagine so. Yeah. You're really a very modest man, you know. You don't mind me saying so. I've just spoken to some people, they can't tell you more about themselves. You're very pleased of it. I imagine you were very pleased of it.
Absolutely.
Sure. Now,
I'll tell you another thing that I was pleased about.
Yeah.
And was playing for the Adnac lacrosse team, the senior lacrosse team, and the senior Adnac basketball team.
Oh, yes.
Because that meant a lot to me.
Oh, yes. Yeah. Well, that basketball team was really a very famous team.
Well, it was.
Yeah.
By the time that I had grown old enough to play for them, of course, most of those players had stopped, and we didn't win any championship. But you know, I'm a local boy, and they were a local team.
Yeah, sure. I was just reflecting on some of your league play experiences, Bob. This might not be a fair question, but I was just wondering if you could reflect on some of the memories of the most exciting and challenging games you had. I imagine the first game was very exciting and challenging to you, the very first game. Are there any stand out in your mind? Say, geez,
Well, the Adnacs had never, they were formed in 33, we agree. We started playing 1937. The Adnacs had never been able to make it to the playoffs. We did make it to the playoffs in 37 for the first time, and we didn't go very far in the playoffs. But was part of the plan, I think, and we did that. And then 38, the Salmon Bellies were the Canadian champions. We made it to the playoffs again, and we ended up beating the Salmon Bellies 3 straight in the local playoffs.
Oh, I see.
And that was when they still had all the nucleus of the team that had won the Man Cup in 1937.
Oh, I see.
And this is where that defensive ability came in, and that was mentioned. Is that Ed Downey was and this is bragging. Ed Downey was the leading scorer in the league that year. Now he was a defenseman, you see, and I was a forward lined up against him. My coach, Jim Gifford, said, "You're going to check him during this series, and this is the way you're going to do it." And this is the way I did it. And I had lots of advice from everybody. This is how you can do it. But Jim Gifford said, "This is what to do, and don't do anything." And I was able to execute it, and outscore him and we won the 3-game series.
Wonderful.
And I was pretty pleased with that, and I was pretty young, and he was a good player, tough player. But that was in 1938. We went back. We played Medicine Hat. We went back to Maple Leaf Gardens, and we got clobbered. St. Catherine's Athletics were the team that we, and they had just finished building up, and they wanted to win it pretty bad. And we had lots of excuses, but they beat the can off us. And
okay, Bob, just continue with what you were saying.
Well, as I mentioned, we got clobbered back east, and all we could think of was next year. And we went through the regular season next year and had a real tough series with Burrards before we won the championship. But we played St. Catherine's in the final out here, and we were able to reciprocate and defeat them 3 straight, which to us was a real accomplishment.
So that was a national championship.
That was the Canadian Lacrosse Championship in the Man Cup.
The Man Cup.
And that was our first one, and that was it.
How many Man Cups did you win?
Well, the Adanacs themselves won in 39, and then, of course, we played as a team in 1940, but the war was on, and 14 of the fellows joined up, so the Adanacs disbanded, and they weren't reorganized until 1945, and most of us were too old to play, but some of us did, and we won the Man Cup again in 1947 with some of the old timers and a lot of new recruits, local boys, anyway. So, and then I did play a series with the Salmon Bellies, but in the Man Cup, but it's the Adanacs that I remember.
You did play with the Salmon Bellies?
Well, I played with the Air Force team during the war, and we played the Salmon Bellies, and they beat us 2 out of 3.
Oh, you played against the Salmon Bellies?
Yeah.
I see.
But then, for the Man Cup, they picked up 2 of us to play the Eastern team.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
Do you have any memories of certain coaches or other team players? You mentioned a few of the team players that were good, or any officials that they stand out in your mind?
Well, yeah, the Vancouver Burrards coach, Les Dickinson, was a real team coach, and he had a good team and we had an awful lot of respect for them. And we played a 7-game series against them that could have gone either way. But at the end of it, you're pals with those guys. They were just a good bunch of guys. And of course, Grumpy Spring was the Salmon Belly. He had played for the Salmon Bellies, and he was the coach and general manager for forever, it seemed. So you knew that
Grumpy Spring,
and you knew that he knew a lot about lacrosse, and you had to respect that. And of course, he won his share of games, and he had a lot of good players playing for him. The referees, I didn't have too much trouble with them, but I can remember tapping a fellow on one of the helmets and getting a 5-minute penalty that cost us a whole series, and so I don't like that referee.
No, you'll never forget him, will you?
No, but my father-in-law was a referee that I respected, and he wasn't my father-in-law at the time, but we were friends. But I can remember in a series where we were winning up until the last 5 minutes, and I got a penalty which I deserved, and so did one of my buddies. So we lost the game. But it was fair enough. Sure. We had done it and got caught. But no, by and large, the refereeing was pretty good, and they contributed to the success of the game.
Sure.
They did.
Yeah. You mentioned your father-in-law. Who was that man? What was his name?
Hugh Gifford.
Hugh Gifford.
Hugh Gifford.
So
one of the 5 Giffords, and 3 of them are in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah. Well, you mentioned getting a penalty for tapping somebody on the helmet, or whatever it was. If that went so serious, it would almost be comical, you know. Were there other comical incidents? Or?
Well, that really was comical because it sounded like a bomb had gone off. It was in the Forum in Vancouver, and the guy just shook his head. It didn't hurt him at all. And there weren't many helmets worn then.
No. That's going to be.
And it sounded wham, just went off like a bomb. But that was it. You remember that?
Yeah. Well, in the league, the Westminster Adnex, the Westminster Sound Valleys, the Vancouver Burrards, the North Shore Indians, and the Richmond Farmers. Yeah. Were there any other teams associated with that league at that time?
Not that time.
No. Well, which of these teams were the toughest, and which were the easiest? Would you say?
Well, I would say none of them were easy.
Okay.
Because but they were all different. You play against the salmon bellies of those days, and the eastern players had a little different approach to lacrosse than we did out here. They could do more damage just swinging their stick about 6 inches than some guy could swing it for a roundabout. Yeah. They could tap you on the wrist or your thumb, and boy, it could put you out.
Oh, sure,
you know,
sure,
and
sure.
they were tough, whereas the Vancouver Burrards, as we knew them, they were a team much like us. They wanted to run, and they had tough players and good players. The Indians, they were good when we first met them. They were all natives, and they were big guys, and they had quite a few imports on their team. Oh yeah, and they were a tough team. Richmond was again more local players, but tough, and there were no cakewalks, I'll tell you. And when we got better, none of them bothered us really, because we knew that we had the ability that if we paid attention to the job, we'd do all right. But if we didn't, well, we'd have to pay for it.
Sure.
You see, so that when the chips were down, we could do it.
Yeah.
But they were all tough. It was a good league, and you could go to a game tonight, no matter who was playing, and you'd be sure that you're going to get lots of excitement.
Well, New Westminster was quite a sports-minded town, all right, wasn't it? You know, you had the basketball and the soccer team. You mentioned that the last time I was talking with you. Referred to Cheater and Wally Myers.
Oh, God. Yeah. They were local heroes to people like me.
Oh, of course, I'm actually would be.
You betcha.
Yeah.
And it was the sports in season. You mentioned baseball.
Yeah.
We used to go up to Queen's Park every Tuesday night, I think it was.
Yeah.
Fraser Cafe and Fraser Mills and Bellingham Bells. Boy, the place was packed. And some local boys were playing, some weren't.
It's quite interesting too, because Fraser Mills owned the baseball team, the baseball field out there, you know?
Yeah.
So they played on Sundays.
On Sundays, yeah. I couldn't figure that out for a while, but we used to go out there on Sundays.
Yeah. And it drew a big crowd, all right. I often think of those days too. I was just a youngster myself, and I never did play with them, but I was always a backup of some kind, I guess. Enthusiastic about Fraser Cafe and the baseball team.
Oh, yeah.
They were quite the rough bunch.
Well, you see, Fraser Mills, there were lots of jobs in those days, and some of the fellows that came up to play baseball stayed there until they retired.
Oh, yeah.
And Fraser Cafe, they seemed to bring up more like university students and so forth. And Bellingham was the same way.
Yes. Well, Fraser Mills, as I understand it, imported a lot of people from the United States to come play for them. And then they worked in the mill, and they just carried on.
Well, that was our salvation too, you know, Fraser Mills. I think I told you that I think maybe a dozen of us worked out there at one time.
Oh, yeah, sure. Yeah, you did mention that.
Yeah.
Well, you're very fortunate that skill because it meant a job too.
Well, in those days, it was that important.
Oh, of course it was. Yeah. So you played for the Adanacs in the championship team, and you played one game with the Salmon Bellies.
One series.
One series with the Salmon Bellies.
Yeah.
And did I understand you to say that they won that series?
Yes, that won the Man Cup that year.
Yeah, won the Man Cup that year. Yeah. You know, you were mentioning coaches and so on. I played for a local league, and the Davy Turner, the old soccer coach, was our coach. He was a character, you know. I played goal.
Did you?
Yeah, and he
was a teacher.
Yeah, he was a teacher. Yeah, he's dead now, though. Unfortunately, he died in Victoria, actually, as I understand it. Anyway, it was we were tied 1-1, and they got a penalty kick just the last few minutes of play. And in those days, time out, you know. He walked out to me and he said, I want to give you a little advice. I said, yes, sure. What is it? You know, don't let that ball go in the goal. And he turned around like that. I just about died, you know. And fortunately, I missed the ball, but it hit the post.
Oh, boy.
Yeah. He said, I didn't expect him to hit the post. If they didn't hit the post, that would have been a goal. Jeez.
That's right.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. He's quite an interesting guy.
Yeah.
I remember listening to Leo Nicholson's play-by-play presentations, you know, and I was talking to some people just recently, and I was talking about the popularity of lacrosse. High priority game. The best, outstanding summer game, you know. And it's broadcast on radio, not on TV. Well, there's no TV in those days, but I said I would imagine that the stands would be filled on playoff time. And how many people did that arena hold? Do you have any idea?
Well, it's been argued about. I have some clippings about the games, quite a few of them. And they talk about 6,000.
6,000, yes.
And the forum was much the same.
Yes. In Vancouver.
And of course, before that time, you could go up to 11,000 down at the old ice arena in Vancouver.
Yes.
On Denman Street.
But with Leo Nicholson calling a game, that meant thousands of others listening to the game on radio. You know? So it had a big calling. It was very, very popular.
Well, he was almost magnetic because you could hear him. As a matter of fact, you could hear the crowd almost at the other end of New Westminster.
Yes.
And if you were coming home from somewhere, and like we used to go down to White Rock when we were kids, and we'd always get home for the game.
Yes.
And geez, you'd be listening to it in the radio, and you just couldn't get there fast enough because he made it so exciting.
Oh, he was. He really was an excellent caller. You know? You just feel yourself in the game. And when he'd say, when somebody was hit with a ball, you could almost feel it yourself, you know. And the way he would describe Pete Anthony's ability to stop a ball.
Yeah.
That, you know.
And scoop it over.
I know.
Yeah.
Well,
he contributed greatly to it.
Oh, yeah. What would you say, Bob, are the chief similarities and differences between yesterday's game and the way it's played today? Or is that a fair question?
I think and this is from a distance because I'm not involved with it. But I really think some of the changes they made to the game haven't helped it very much. And I think quarters were better than what they have now. I think they changed from 15 minutes to 20 minutes to be the same as hockey. And at the same time, the hockey would never do it, but hockey was thinking, we got to do something to change our game, so we might go back to the 15 minutes. I don't know if you remember that.
No,
but I think that 15 minutes just gave enough break. It gave you the three breaks, and then you got that fourth quarter. That's the payoff. Mm-hmm. The payoff. And you know this. I don't know if it's 20 seconds or 30 seconds to shoot. We didn't. They would have probably put that rule in because of one player who could drag the ball and nobody could get it off. But we always figured that if you've got the ball, get up and run and get a shot, and if you miss a shot, get the rebound, get another shot. And I think you got more excitement there. Whereas you got a guy that says, "Gee, I got to shoot in 20 seconds."
Yeah. And
he's going to shoot no matter where he is.
Right.
And those are the things that I think changed it. But apart from that, I think that they have lacrosse has a tough road to hoe right now because being a summer game and being indoors with so many other attractions, you know, so many people have cars and TVs, and if it's a dirty night, you're not going to go out. You'll stay home and do something. And the other thing was that when we were playing, none of our players were married.
No, I see.
You see? And nowadays, I've had junior teams that I couldn't get enough players out because they had other interests, and we were always just gung ho to be there, but that's times, I think, there wasn't much anything else for us to do. We were glad to get out there, and we felt that we were part of the way things were in those days, and that we thought we were pretty good, I guess.
Yeah. Did you coach teams, other teams?
Oh yeah.
After your AdNex or during your AdNex?
No, after.
After.
Yeah.
Yes.
One I did when I was playing senior, and I would help the local kids in the West End as much as I could.
Yeah, sure.
If they wanted any help.
Yeah.
But after I stopped playing, I refereed a lot of minor games up to junior.
Oh, yes.
And I had 2 lacrosse teams in one season that I was coaching, one major, one juvenile.
Is that a fact?
But yeah, I spent a lot of time with them, and our daughters were pretty small, and they would rather have been swimming somewhere. But anyhow, they were very good.
Yeah.
But the thing that I found at that time was refereeing, especially, was the abuse that parents tried to give the referees, you know. Yeah. And I wouldn't stand for it, of course.
No.
And but it was just awful. Yeah. And you know, they'd start calling you this and that, and if you're favoring one team over the other. But it had to be done, and as I say, I was old enough and experienced enough that I could handle it. Whereas you see a lot of young kids that are refereeing now,
Yeah.
It's pretty tough.
Yeah. So, you were a player, and you were a coach, and you were a referee. I'm talking about your career.
I was a manager once.
And you were a manager, and you were a captain at one time?
Yeah, and I was a commissioner. I was on the commission.
Yes. Did you captain the Adanacs?
Never.
No.
No.
This was it.
No.
But you were also you're also a commissioner.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
What was the role of a commissioner, or were there several commissioners?
Well, at one time they've had it different ways. It was one guy that has been the commissioner, but when I was on, I think there were probably five commissioners.
Oh, yeah.
Probably each team had a representative that they were not. And it was just to make sure the league was operating properly, and if and transfers, and if what's the same as Colin Campbell had to do, and with discipline. You see, if some team or some players were getting out of hand, just to run the league properly and make sure that it was a first-rate operation.
Were there any incidents of players, or teams rather, buying off a referee?
Never heard of it.
No.
And
You don't hear too much of that.
No, I could.
No.
You might have thought that.
Yeah.
We probably thought that, but luckily there wasn't enough money around, and there wasn't enough. You see,
well, that's the
whole thing. When I tell people now that I played in 1939, which was the premier year when we beat the St. Catharines for the Man Cup.
Yeah. I
think I played 41 games. That includes the league and the playoffs and the BCs and the Man Cup, etc. My take for the year was $140.
Mm-hmm.
So who's going to pay me to do something?
No.
If somebody's going to pay me $5 a game to lay down, is it worth it for $1? But that was it. And we were pleased to get it. And we, at the end of the year, and our team, we all got the same, whether you were a star or a rookie. But but I think that was another thing that the league had to do, and not too often, but a transfer, for example. There was at one time a lot of Richmond players wanted to go to the Broads, where they wanted to be with their old coach, and Richmond would object, of course, because they're losing 4 or 5 good players. But the commission at that time would have to say, well, we've got to try and keep the league balanced.
Yes.
And will this affect it if we let 5 go, or should we just let 3 go this year and 2 the next year? And those are the kind of things. And one time, the theory was, well, if the Salmon Bellies and the Adanacs were joined as a new Westminster team, they'd be unbeatable. Well, that's just a dream, because they wouldn't have been unbeatable.
No.
But the commission, in their wisdom, said, hey, no, there are going to be 2 teams at Westminster, and that's it. And no, there never was enough money. But the only time where money might come into it, whereas a superstar like Bionda, somebody might offer more at Victoria, or a different job. I mean, one thing you couldn't argue about is if a player from the Adanacs in New Westminster was offered a job in the fire hall in Victoria, you couldn't stop that.
No.
You see, because there's a kid that couldn't get a job in the fire hall here, but he could get it over there. So those are the kind of things that you got to say, well, let's go.
Yeah, sure, of course. When did you retire from the game?
From playing?
Yes.
I I played in the 1947 Man Cup with the New Westminster Adnax.
1947.
47. And that would effectively be a 10-year span, but I was out of it for 4 or 5 years during the war.
Yes.
But I played in the Man Cup. I got injured my leg during the war, and I played at the start of the 47 season, and I figured, well, this is no good. There are enough kids to play, let them play, you see. So I stopped playing, but I was still part of the team. But Max McDonald was the coach at that time, and he wanted a little more experience or a little more beat for the Man Cup final. So he said to me one night during the summer, "Now, if I'm stuck, would you play for me?" And I said, "Sure." I said, "If I can help, I will." So came the Man Cup, and he says, "Bob, don't forget what you said, during the summer." And I said, "No, that's okay." So I did play I didn't contribute very much, but I did play, and made him feel better.
Sure.
So that was when I wound it up, and I kept in pretty good shape, but at that time I hadn't been playing all summer, and I guess we got married that year, and my wife thought of me as a trim young fellow when I was playing in 38, 39, but it was a little different.
Yeah. Oh, it makes a difference.
Yeah.
Tell me, Bob, why and when did the New Westminster Adnax become the Coquitlam Adnax?
Well, the New Westminster Adnax, what they came down to in New Westminster, because the game had sort of slowed down a bit, and there weren't enough players for 2 good teams in New Westminster.
No.
So they tried different combinations. They were called the Salmonacs at one time.
Oh, that's right.
They were called the Commandos another time. There were 2 or 3 names, and the theory was the Adnax and the Salmon Valleys could join and become a good team. They never could. It's like blood and water. They just never could and never did. So finally they became the Salmon Valleys again. And this, honestly, this goes back to the 30s.
Sure.
If you read my scrapbook and you read Hell Street, they'll talk about that they won't speak to one another, and that was the fact that families were divided. Salmon Valley Adnax. So that's how bitter it was during those heydays. You were one or the other. There was no halfway. So what happened when the Salmon Valley took over? So the Adnax name just stayed in limbo for a while. And then Ralph Douglas, who had been coaching junior teams, figured, well, I've got enough players that I can make a senior team out of this. So the Coquitlam Arena was available, and Ralph Douglas, and probably John and others, and we all were a small part of it, but Ralph organized the Coquitlam Adnax and used the team, and that was it. And that's how they came.
Well, that's a very interesting story. I have never heard an explanation. That's
Really?
That's a good one, Phil. I have heard people say that who played lacrosse in that period say, "I would never play for the Salmon Valleys." Oh, jeez. And there's a real feud was there. You see.
Oh, absolutely.
And they felt cheated, I guess, at the beginning because they couldn't have a chance to play because they were grabbing all the players from East. Yeah, that's interesting.
Oh, I see a good friend of mine and her. She was a Salmon Valley supporter, and then she says, "Oh, here's Bobby, the dirty Adnax."
Yeah. Oh, geez, he's a nice guy, but somebody plays for the Adnex?
Yeah.
Jeez, I can't understand that.
Well,
it's a sin, you know.
There was just no question of it, boy.
Yeah. Well, they say lacrosse is a New Westminster tradition. The Salmon Bellies is a tradition, too. It's almost a religion, you know.
Yeah.
Just like the New York Yankees.
Well,
they talk about being sent down if they're going to Brooklyn, you know.
Yeah, that's right. Well, I think the Salmon Belly tradition, like you mentioned earlier, you go back to the 1890s or so, and they played in Townsend Field down here. It's a great tradition, but I'm not part of it.
No. Well, let's talk about the Canadian Lacrosse Hall of Fame. You were inducted in the. And when were you inducted?
November 1998. 1998,
yeah. And you retired in 47.
Yep.
Well, tell me, what do you have to do to get into the Hall of Fame?
Well, I guess in my case, I had to wait 60 years. It's a very controversial topic, and I would say that the majority of fellows in there deserve to be in there.
Yes.
But I have never really been told what the qualifications have to be. I can look in the book and I can see where Joe Blow got lots of goals, and it's like baseball or hockey. Wartime hockey, for example, a guy's going to get 5-6 goals a game if he's any good. Whereas if all the players were back and it was the same old league, he might get 1, he might get 2, unless he's a real good guy. But
if he survived the game.
That's right. That's right. But I think that by and large, the selection committee does what they can with it, because it's a tough thing. But I think you've got to have a guy that's going to go in there that the sport should be proud of, because of his ability and his action on and off the floor. And that, people would argue about that, but I think that any, if a guy could be in there, he could be the toughest defenseman that you want. He's the guy that you'd want out there when you're in the crunch. You may never score a goal, and we've both seen that. So you couldn't say, well, he's got to be a goal scorer to be in there. But he's got to be an all-round player, and he's got to be a value to his team. And I think that his teammates are the guys that can say, gee, that's the guy that I want there if times are tough. And when you're playing a game and everything's going against you, and a guy like that can say, wow, let's pour up. That's the kind of a guy that
leadership
you would want in there, full leadership, and you know that he's going to go all out for you. Goal scorers have their place. I can remember being asked before there was a Hall of Fame, if you were going to put 2 fellows into a Hall of Fame, who would you put in? And my choice at that time, they're both